In a period of 10 years, between 2009 and 2019, Nairobi's population grew from over 3.1 million to over 4.3 million. Annually, Nairobi grows by 4%, primarily because of high birth rates and rural to urban migration. Think of it like this: change, just like growth, is inevitable. A perfect description of Nairobi, a fast-growing city once referred to as the green city under the sun.
If you remember, the city of Nairobi, a mantra for a long time, has been the green city in the sun. The changes that we have experienced are very clear. Number one, the population of the city of Nairobi has increased. So the number of persons who live and work in the city has increased. Over time, if you've been able to watch maybe a film or photographs of the old Nairobi, okay, of the 70s, of the 80s, it is not what it is today.
In the same period, between 2010 and 2020, Nairobi lost a total of 4.61 hectares of forest cover. This, according to the Global Forest Watch, amounts to 2.1 kilotons of greenhouse gas emissions.
So my name is Jedida Wanyeki, the Chief Executive Officer, Greens of Africa Foundation. This is an organization that is focusing on environment, conservation, and protection. You know, when you look at Nairobi, it's all concrete. It is a very stressful environment. Even when you walk within that concrete jungle called Nairobi, you are stressed even by yourself. Even if nobody is stressing you, the concrete is very, very challenging and it is very stressful.
For Kenya's capital, urbanization has contributed to this decline in at least two ways.
So there's that increased population. Now, as a consequence of that, and the effect of that then, is that there has been increased demand for various activities and services. So, starting with housing, there has been increased demand for housing. Okay? Now, for us then to be able to meet the increased demand for housing, that's where you have found that now more and more houses have been built. Okay? Both within the boundaries of the city of Nairobi and also in the outskirts to be able to meet the demands of the increasing population. Then the other thing which has also then happened is then that our commercial areas have also increased. In the early days, we simply had the central business districts as the main commercial center where we all went to buy our items, our consumables and so on, do our daily shopping and so on. But now that has certainly changed. Now you have got many commercial centers. You have got the Yayas around here, you have got Westlands, okay, you have got Adams Arcade, okay, you have got, the Buruburus and so on.
Equally, significant roads in the city are under expansion. Shots show Valley Road down to Kenyatta Avenue, for instance, looking green on both sides of the road's reserve. 4 years later, a significant number of trees have been cleared to create room for concrete sidewalks and expansion of this road. Same is the case with the diversion towards Nyerere Road and the diversion towards Ngong Road. Gradually, Nairobi is now shifting its face from green to grey, with more concrete surfaces replacing green and permeable surfaces.
The grey spaces are mostly, I would look at them as spaces that are concrete, spaces that are planned in a way, in a modern way, but the material that is used in those grey spaces usually take away or take a lot away from your normal planning elements in terms of your green spaces, in terms of those soft surfaces, in terms of even the visuals. For instance, where you have a tree and it's been felled to clear room for a road, then your green space is your natural habitat made up of different kinds of flora and fauna.
take a look at the expressway for instance. This impact assessment report accounts for a loss of 4,690 trees since its development started. According to the report, this was done to create an alignment for the 27-kilometer-long dual-carriage expressway. This will reduce logistic costs between Nairobi and the Northern Corridor and ease traffic congestion along Mombasa Road, Uhuru Highway and Waiyaki Way. In the meantime, another drone shot shows how immensely the stretch from Mombasa Road connecting to Waiyaki Way through Uhuru Highway looked like. 4 years later, this stretch is left bare and rubble.
So with the construction of the expressway, we lost so many trees. It took us quite a long time for those trees to mature. The kind of species of those trees is quite diverse. And the environmental benefits those trees provide to different sections along the expressway will be very different.
Averagely, a mature tree can absorb up to 167 kilograms of carbon dioxide or a ton of carbon dioxide per year for 6 mature trees.
It will take us quite a long time, even beyond the expenses that will be incurred to replant or regrow those particular trees. But the same value will not be shared because, one, you have to bear in mind that the expressway exists, and this is a concrete structure. Say on average a tree takes 20 years to grow. The environment will have changed drastically. Now bear in mind even the number of vehicles that will be plying the expressway, and still beyond the expressway we still have the regular vehicles on the regular route. So really it puts much more pressure that will take us quite a long time because there will have to be peak emissions at some point in time just based on the biodiversity that we have lost.
Vehicles are considered to be the highest emitters of carbon dioxide. With this, what happens is exhaust gases trap solar radiations, causing a rise in temperatures. This is scientifically what's referred to as the heat island effect.
When the air is polluted, then it means the air is holding more particles, and those particles could be arising from motor vehicle exhaust fumes.
In simple terms, the heat island effect happens when certain areas of a city become hotter than the outlying areas. Say, for instance, Eastlands, a suburb with the city's largest population, gets warmer than the surrounding areas. Then Eastlands qualifies to be a heat island.
Now that arises because then of still air that which is not freely circulating. Okay? And that then happens where you have got congestion of tall buildings. So the free movement of air, the wind does not flow smoothly through. Okay? So you therefore find that the air is held still. Okay? There is less movement of air. Okay? Less movement of the wind. Therefore, the air is still. And then when the air is still, then certainly, because in the tropics, we do receive this a lot of sunlight, then that certainly warms up that air. And indeed, the buildings themselves, by virtue of them being able to absorb the sun's radiation, then they also become warmer, which therefore also means that they also heat up the air late into the evening, even when the sun has gone.
The construction of the expressway has taken away green spaces. I remember the very first original design was passing through Uhuru Park. You can imagine a Nairobi without Uhuru Park. I can't even want to imagine how it would have looked like. With all that greenery, which is the carbon sink for Nairobi town, just getting away and we have a concrete there. That would have been the most depressing part that the Nairobians could have gone through.
Okay, let me bring this closer home. You've probably seen this video somewhere on the internet. or this one, or this one? Does this mean the city receives more rain than it can handle, or is the city covered with more impervious surfaces? Floods are a result of rain, but the raindrops can only take two routes, especially for a city that has most of its surface turned into concrete and a few others left permeable.
As it starts to rain and the ground is dry, those raindrops get absorbed into the ground. Now, as it continues to rain, the ground and the soil get saturated. Then you now have got water running on the surface because the ground is what? Is saturated. So we start having surface runoff. Surface runoff is actually what is referred to as flood. Now, for a city, for a town, what happens is then that now we have got more buildings. We remove the grass as we develop to put up buildings, to put up roads, okay? So we remove the green cover, the grass, we cut down the trees, therefore, and we replace it with what? With impervious what? Surface. As the city grows, as the city expands, we have got less and less green cover, okay? You have got less tree cover, less grass cover, okay? Therefore, we have got more and more paved areas, impervious, okay, areas. Therefore, there is more and more surface runoff. It is that increased surface runoff which results in floods.
For instance, if I draw an example from your rural setting, it might be easily accepted or a bit easier for someone to, get into a forested area, get some biomass to cook with, just simply because of the setting that they're in. If you come back to an urban setting and issues of urbanization as we're discussing, then it becomes a bit more complicated, just simply because deforestation now reduces the carbon sinks that you have within a city or within an urban area. And carbon sinks are really important to offset issues of carbon emissions, your greenhouse gases linked to climate change and how these proliferate global warming. Secondly, you're exposing the surface towards runoff that leads to degradation of different ecosystems.
What cities such as Nairobi are facing is just a portion of what the future has in store. Now that we are here, how then do we move forward as a city?
Planning is everything. In fact, it's always said that when you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Okay? And I think Nairobi and our city, unfortunately, we have fallen back. We need to strike a balance, okay, between our human development activities and the natural environment. When we maintain our greenery, when we maintain our tree cover, we certainly have got an influence on climate. Number one, in terms of moderation of the temperatures. Number two, in terms of rainfall.
So in my mind, I really think from a people-centered approach, cities should be planned for people and not for vehicles. The interesting thing about it is that it cascades to every sector. And so it's important to look at planning holistically from a city perspective where, for example, your energy supply and demand to ensure it's targeted towards clean and renewable energy. Your waste management has to be sustainable, to embrace a circular economy approach. The way people move, mobility issues have to be directed towards non-motorized forms of transport or cleaner forms of transport.
And the struggle to restore the green city under the sun doesn't stop with planning the city for the future.
When you come and do all these constructions in Nairobi and you remove the green spaces, and you are creating more parking for vehicles, you can imagine the amount of emission and the amount of gases that are going into the air. At one time, if we do not change course, we are going to have Nairobi full of sick people. We have no time left. We are already in a crisis as we speak. We have already lost a lot of green spaces. So what we can do is to make sure that the government agencies that are concerned with making sure that enforcement of laws in this country is done, like NEMA, they should not be sleeping. Now, our slogan for Greens of Africa is trees for us, by us. In other words, there is no one who is coming to do this for us. It is each one's responsibility to take care of our environment. It is you and I to plant the trees. Don't talk about a government. I don't know when people talk a government, they mention who. Because here we have a government of the people, a government of the people, for the people, by the people. It's a responsibility of all of us. We are government.